Ladies and gentlemen, it's an honor to be here. I assure you I won't make any comments on anything else that's been said today. I've enjoyed the comments, some of the comments more than others, frankly, but we were given a great send-off by you, Peter. I'm really touched by what you said. And two disclaimers to start. One is that I have a text. If anybody's interested, it's over there, and I will give you only part of it. And the reason is that I'll probably send this to MPs and senators and to the government of Sri Lanka, so I don't want to miscue on anything. It's actually been gone over by a number of people whose opinion I respect, so I hope that everything in the statement is accurate. If any of you find anything in it that is not accurate, please tell me, and I would be very happy to know. Secondly, if I grimace, it's not because of you or the topic. I was going to visit a friend last week who had broken her arm, and I went on the ice, and have any of you done this? And ended up on my back and in the hospital. And it's actually easier to stand than to sit. But those of you who aren't from Ottawa, please be careful on the streets of this city. The ice is very dangerous. Sorry, what did you say? You don't agree with me that the ice is... I agree it's true. Okay, well, now, John McKay's gone now, and he said that Louise Arbour made this comment in the Toronto Star. Actually, I used to work for the Toronto Star. It was actually in the Globe and Mail, John. Anybody here from John's office that can tell him that he... I'll just give you the first paragraph, because I think it's the best. How many of you saw this, by the way? Did everyone see it? Oh, yeah. Well, I guess... all right, this is, I think, is the Tamils await their peace dividend. Quote, "For Tamils, the end of Sri Lanka's civil war has brought no peace dividend. For Tamil women, peace has brought with it a continuation and in some cases an intensification of violence and insecurity. In the predominantly Tamil-speaking north and east, a region half the size of Nova Scotia, tens of thousands of war widows have been living under the control of the central government and Sinhalese security forces since 2009 and the end of the Civil War, and whose last few months saw as many as 40,000 civilians killed." Just after the war ended, literally I think it was the week after the war ended, a group of us visited Sri Lanka. There were actually about 20 of us from Australia, New Zealand, Europe, Canada, United States, with an international church. The church that we represented has, I think, 120 million members. So if they could keep Bob Rae out of it, I guess the fact that we were representing, in theory, 120 million people as evangelical churches is why we got in. You'll be interested to know that the Canadians in the group were told, John, that we could not go to the north and east. Can you imagine Canadians being singled out this way? The Europeans and the people from New Zealand were allowed to, but we were told we couldn't go. So, in fact, well, that's another story. But we found a nation in desperate need of healing, goodwill, and forgiveness on both sides. Widespread traumas resulting from almost 3 decades of violence had left up more than 100,000 dead. If anyone has an accurate estimate of that figure, I'd like to know it, because I believe the accurate statement is more than 100,000 human beings were killed, and hundreds of thousands displaced. The major obstacles to reconciliation was the legacy of bitterness and grievances on both sides. One of the recommendations that I later offered in a personal capacity for the government of Sri Lanka to consider was to move towards national reconciliation, in part by implementing the famous 13th Constitutional Amendment, providing for some devolution to regional councils. Since then, as you all know, little has been forthcoming in terms of a political solution based on devolution. Amendment 13 has not gone anywhere. Au contraire, it appears that the powers of the provinces are being further reduced. The passage of the 18th Amendment to the Constitution, as all of you know, centralized even more powers in the presidency. I might say in passing that he would not meet with us when we were there, even though, as I say, we were representing, in theory, 120 million people. I guess they told us he was busy. The passage of, President Rajapaksa has said his government would be pursuing a political solution to go beyond the present framework of devolution. It's apparently he's considering a Senate or an upper house of Parliament as a bridge between the centre and the provinces. This is not a solution to the Tamil demand for a limited autonomy in managing local and provincial affairs. The Parliamentary Select Committee, as you know, the Sri Lankan government intends to have a Parliamentary Select Committee work out the modalities of a political solution to the ethnic conflict. But prospects for political reform, devolution, and a political solution to the conflict appear, I think it's fair to say, dim. In mid-2009, the Tamils in Sri Lanka and the diaspora voiced concern that the defeat of the Tigers would lead to a weakened Tamil voice and continued discrimination, which caused the violence in the first place. The plight of the internally displaced persons across Sri Lanka would worsen, they felt, without international oversight and support, and we've heard a lot about that today. Although the LTTE was eliminated militarily, the government has not been able to quell Tamil concerns through political means. The main issue is war crimes, strengthened by the reality that the government has not come up with a political solution to the grievances. The goal of the diaspora group should be a lasting political solution to the outstanding issues rather than desire to punish. I'm happy to tell you that a friend of mine who worked in South Africa when Nelson Mandela was getting out of prison just wrote an article in the Walrus magazine last, John Schramm. And ladies and gentlemen, as you know, what was done in South Africa in terms of genuine reconciliation is something that Sri Lanka should follow. Some blame Tamil leaders for what happened at the political level going back to the 1930s before independence. Regardless of viewpoint, the concerns of the people at the grassroots must be heard. Let me give you two examples of Tamil diaspora successes. The Tamil diaspora attended the 100th anniversary of the African National Congress in South Africa. Did any of you go to that, by any chance? Okay. Whose moral influence on the world conscience due to enlightened post-apartheid leadership of former President Nelson Mandela, can scarcely be overestimated. And as you've heard several times today, Prime Minister Harper has reiterated that he will boycott the 2013 Commonwealth Summit unless there is progress in Sri Lanka. Since Canada has the largest Tamil diaspora in the world, our approach can perhaps influence other countries with similar populations. I might, since the point was raised, point out that the Commonwealth has an organization called the Commonwealth Ministers Action Group. Some of us actually were involved. I was involved in that. We went to Sierra Leone. We went to Nigeria. We went to Zimbabwe, and this institution in the Commonwealth could perhaps be playing a role in Sri Lanka. I frankly don't know why it isn't. I'll leave my comments on the lessons learned report. That's had enough people attack it today. I don't need to add my voice on that one. Let me just turn to the UN Human Rights Council. The next Human Rights Council session begins this month in Geneva. Western countries want an interactive session with the government focused on the LLRC report, the lessons learned report, but might try to delay any international action until the November meetings. By then, it may have begun implementing the lessons learned recommendation. To be sure, the government of Sri Lanka clearly will take virtually anything, I believe, to ensure that the issue of alleged war crimes in the last phase of the war is not taken up at any session of the Human Rights Council. The best option, I hope you agree, is to focus on improving the Tamil circumstances in the north and the east. Primary areas of concern: 1, stopping state-sponsored forced colonization. 2, improving the livelihood and housing conditions of the war-displaced people. Those wanting to return to fishing as a livelihood, for example, must apply for a permit, presumably to avoid importing arms. The unverified claim is that the Tamils are not issued permits, and if they are caught fishing without a permit, they disappear. 3, many infrastructure developments, such as the construction of railways and government buildings, have not improved livelihoods of the war-affected people. The reconstruction project of the railway to Jaffna has been unacceptably slow. War-affected people continue to live in temporary housing, as we saw in this marvelous excerpt from Channel 4. India's June 2010 commitment to build 50,000 homes is appreciated, although to date, I gather only 1,000 homes are being built. The government should carry out the development in consultation with the local people through their representative institutions and in response to their priorities. Demilitarizing Tamil regions. And the excerpt said everything, didn't it? Tamils feel that they have been downgraded from citizens to subjects in a militarized government. You can see updates, I'm sure you all know, at www.tamilnet.com. Management and the oversight of the military needs to be changed so that it will become acceptable to the people. The government understandably doesn't want the LTTE to regroup, but dysfunctional civil-military relations, armed groups, and vigilante groups posing threats to ordinary people are jeopardizing the crucial process of building trust and reconciliation. On the surface, everything might seem calm, but rumors persist that when young military are off duty, they wreak havoc through sexual crimes, including rape and theft. And of course, we saw that on the Channel 4 as well, or allusions to it. Civilians need to feel that the military presence is supporting and empowering their communities by sustaining and protecting democratic and human dignity values. The phenomenon of people going missing, as reported in the January issue of The Economist, greasemen, have you heard that term before? Greasemen who provoke Tamils to see that if they will use firearms to push back, and off-limit areas supposedly due to landmines, but suspected of being sites for corpses, indicate that the military must be held accountable to a body consisting of locally elected politicians and civil society leaders. Okay, going back, a word about the Canadian parliamentary delegation. And I guess you all know that there was a delegation of 2 MPs, Joe Daniel and Chungsun Leung, who spent 2 days, can you imagine, 2 days? In early January, witnessing progress in Sri Lanka since the end of the war. They looked at opportunities for investment and trade. Busy 2 days, wouldn't you say? They visited hospitals, and so on, schools, and expressed appreciation for the Sri Lankan government role in reconciliation. Why did I hear somebody chuckle? Is that you, John?
Instinctively, yes.
They also commended the government, I believe, for providing education, health, and unemployment opportunities so that people could engage in normal life, in quotes, after decades of conflict. I actually spoke to Joe Daniel this morning, and I asked him why he wasn't coming this afternoon. And if anybody, I hope he should be here, and he should be talking about his 2 days. But let me give you something he said, which you might find of interest. He told me this morning, quote, "Clearly there is still a great deal to be done. Both sides need to work together. There is active participation in the rebuilding by the Tamil community," he said. He mentions, for example, the dire need for a cardiac unit in the Jaffna hospital. Apparently there are people dying there frequently. I think somebody died while he was there because there was no cardiac unit. And something else that he mentioned is about 2 people a day die of snake bites in the northern part of the country.
Yes, yeah.
2 people a day?
The fighting area, previously fighting areas, the war area, you get most of the places you get snakes.
The highest cause of death.
Oh, well, he says they need proper. Is there an antidote for a cobra bite?
There you get a lot of snakes. You know, I was happened to work in that area in 1967. I was a land surveyor.
Yeah.
Previous to me there was a surveyor. I went to replace him. He was bitten by a snake, and he was taken and whole blood they changed.
Really?
Yeah, he's actually I replaced him as a surveyor in that area.
Cobra bite?
No, they're called Mahapila.
Mahapila.
Mahapila cobra. There's a name called
Oh.
Mahapila. The end of the name is cobra.
Oh.
So there is very dangerous. It sucks the blood.
Well, Joe Daniel says we have to get better antidotes into the north for people in snake bites.
There the fighting areas we had all Wagni area,
Yeah.
you get very dangerous snakes.
Oh.
I was working in that area in 1967.
Now, one other thing he said is that, now, I wrote this down quickly. He said that the delegation was told by the government that approximately 11,000 of 14,800 Tamil combatants captured have been resettled, and that 1.5 million landmines have been cleared mostly by Tamils. Does anyone know that to be correct or incorrect? Well, that was what that. Sorry.
That's credible.
It's credible?
Is being done.
Okay. Well, then that's good to hear.
International funding, I might add.
Okay. Canadian funding too?
Yes.
Okay. So finally, and I'm sorry I've gone on so long, what Canada can do, Canada should urge the Sri Lankan government to continue its process of rebuilding trust by establishing as a follow-up mechanism for implementation of the lessons learned recommendations, along with a time frame.